Welcome to the Quantum Business Briefs podcast, a production of the Quantum Franchise Group. This is your podcast for bringing the dream of business ownership to life. And now here's your host, William Huffine.
Well, hello, family. I'm William Huffine. I am your host today here on the Quantum Business Briefs podcast or vodcast if you're watching it on YouTube. I'm the founder of the Quantum Business Community and the president of Quantum Franchise Group. And this episode today is part of our series that we call Franchise Fridays, where we focus on one specific company in a specific industry that might just be the exact fit that you're looking for to make the dream of business ownership become a reality. So again, thank you for being here. Make yourself comfortable. We're going to go ahead and jump right into today's episode. So being the age that I am and having seen both of my parents go through the aging process, it's exciting for me to be able to talk with representatives from a brand today that is really focused on taking care of folks in a home setting, particularly elderly folks who really need that care. I saw my parents go through this myself, and I place a very, very high premium on companies that were like the one that we're going to talk about today, who really make aging a little less difficult for our loved ones. So today I'm talking with two representatives from a company called Assisting Hands. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dan Durney, who is the Director of Franchise Development, and also Deanna Keppel, who is the Vice President of Support Services. So hello, guys. Happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into this. And whichever one of you would like to take the lead here, I'd like for you to just introduce us to your brand. Tell us a little bit about the service that you provide and talk a little bit about the history of the brand, when it launched, when you began franchising, unit growth, and things like that. So the floor is yours. Whoever wants to take the mic.
Well, normally ladies first, but I'll go ahead and take this one. So Assisting Hands actually started as a company in the Phoenix, Arizona market as a company called Care Corner. Our founder was 25 years in healthcare administration, was looking for care for her father. Couldn't find any company she felt comfortable with, so she started Care Corner. In 3 years, she had built it up to $5 million a year with 2 offices, 200 caregivers in the Phoenix area. And we approached her to franchise her business model, and the investors for that project were 2 farmers and a dentist up in Idaho. No industry experience, which is consistent with us now. We have a handful of nurses and a couple of social workers, but they're about as close as being adjacent to the industry as we have. But anyway, we've realized that we could franchise a model where a system was put in place to duplicate very easily and have a full playbook. However, we found out the name Care Corner was not available nationally, so it was changed to Assisting Hands Home Care, which is actually more descriptive of what we do in all candor. That started franchising in 2007. And we are currently in 28 states, just opened in Tennessee, with about 85 franchisees covering approximately 190 territories across the country. And we provide primarily in-home non-medical care targeted to seniors. Our goal is to help seniors stay in their home their own home as long as possible. And if the family members are providing care and they're living with family members, to help give a break to the family members and work in conjunction with them as well. And then in some cases, we do provide some staffing where loved ones are in facilities that need some extra level of care. And Deanna can talk a little bit more about how we do some of those type of services.
Yeah, go right ahead, Deanna.
Yeah, so our in-home care is providing one-on-one care, a caregiver coming out to the home to provide non-medical assistance. That could be help with bathing, dressing, meal preparation, companionship, transportation, really anything that somebody at home might just need a little bit of help with to keep them safe and healthy. And then the staffing component, like Dan mentioned, if you have a loved one in a skilled nursing facility and still want that one-on-one care, our caregivers can go out and just be with that individual for companionship, ensure that their needs are being met in the facility, and also help them stay in the level of care that they want to be in. So if they're in an assisted living and, maybe they're at risk of needing to move out, we can come in and actually help them age safely at home.
Yeah, right. Well, you guys have seen great growth. You said 89 franchisees so far?
About 85 to 90 franchisees in about 190 territories.
Yeah, wow, that's great. And we are recording this in the summer of 2023. Do you have a projection of how many units you think you'll add in 2023?
So I'm glad you asked. We add about a dozen franchisees a year on purpose. We are not owned by private equity, and we wear that as a badge of honor. It helps preserve our family culture, which we'll talk a little bit more. I think last year we added 22 territories, so that included some franchisees who acquired additional territories from the get-go, and then some existing franchisees that expanded their reach within their markets, which is always a good sign. Franchisees that are not happy don't add territory.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, and if you don't have this figure off the top of your head, it's totally fine. But I'm wondering, what is your retention rate of franchisees?
Actually, I don't know what the percentage is. I've never done a percentage. We've had a couple that passed away, sadly. Sometimes the franchisees will acquire those. I will put it this way. We've had a couple close, and the two things that don't work caused them. One thing is doing this part-time while you keep a job, because we're an owner-operator full-time endeavor. And the other is trying to do everything yourself, one person. So you've got to be able to properly staff it to run it, to get everything done. So people that don't follow that, but we've had just very few closures.
Yeah, that's good.
We've had a couple of resales where they exited because they had a health issue, and so they sold it in one case, to a relative of another franchisee in our system, and then, like I say, in a couple of scenarios, the territories have been acquired by existing franchisees.
Yeah. All right. That's good. So, I represent, as a franchise broker with the Franchise Brokers Association, I represent over 800 brands, and we have a pretty significant portfolio of brands that are in your space, in your industry. So what I'd love to hear from you, both of you, either of you, is why choose Assisting Hands? If if a potential franchisee is looking to get into this industry, what is your edge? What are your selling points that would really sway them toward your brand instead of some of the other great brands that are out there?
Well, I would say in general, we have 4 distinct differentiators. The first one, far and away, is our family culture. To the extent we have an acronym for it, the FOFO, the Family of Franchise Owners. And it actually ends up becoming another level of support with franchisees helping one another. I was recently at our last annual conference, and I heard 2 franchisees talking. One had been open just barely, like a year and a half, and the other one had just signed. They were coming to the first conference. They hadn't even opened yet. And the one that was open a year and a half said, "Hey, call me as soon as you open. I'll help you walk through whatever." I mean, just they're not even in the same markets or whatever. They just everybody's really helpful. It's an extra level of support. So that family culture is number 1. Number 2 is, I think, a very strong use of technology with the software that runs the business, very optimized for efficiency and not a lot of extra accounting work that has to be done, no double entry, things like that. And we also use some geofencing technology for electronic visit verification, et cetera. So very high level of technology that franchisees have access to. Then I would say our third differentiator is our area rep program. We have currently 22 area reps across the country, which includes Deanna as one of them up in the Detroit market. And the area reps provide yet another level of support for the franchisees in their local market with someone who's there has a vested interest in helping them be successful as a coach and a mentor. And then I would say our fourth differentiator is what I refer to as flexibility. We do not micromanage our franchisees, and Deanna can speak to this when she chimes in here after I stop. But our core business, as I mentioned, is in-home, non-medical, targeted to seniors. But if a franchisee wants to also provide care for people who have had a hip or a knee replacement, like a post-op recuperation, might be a short-term case. They don't even have to be a senior. We're not pigeonholed into that. If they want to provide care for women who are high-risk pregnancies, who are on bed rest before they give birth or shortly thereafter. Some franchisees work with folks with dementia and Alzheimer's, special needs, even autism. And then there's even a few franchisees that work with folks that are developmentally disabled adults which is the whole age range spectrum. So you can pick and choose who you want to work with and how you want to focus and build your business. And then of course the flexibility extends to the payor sources, which of course the bulk of the business in this industry is private pay. But you have folks that have long-term care and disability insurance policies. There are veterans that have VA benefits for aid and attendance. And in some markets, you have access to Medicaid, not Medicare specifically, but Medicaid that can provide some care to some folks who are lower income. So a lot of flexibility. That would be what I would say would be our 4 big differentiators.
Yeah, Deanna, go ahead and jump in there. What do you love about the brand?
Yeah, I mean, the FOFO is really what separates us. We have an amazing culture from the top down, and it really shows. Our franchisees, our family, they reach out to one another. They really do support each other genuinely, which is very nice to see and just really heartwarming. The support with the area representatives is something that provides franchisees just the local level, somebody in their market who knows referral contacts, who's gone out and recruited caregivers there. They really understand what's happening on the local level. And then, like Dan said, the flexibility. We go by guardrails, not train tracks, is something we always like to say.
I like that.
So, we definitely provide the path, but we allow our business owners to find what really works best for them in growing their business.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. I like the train tracks and guardrails analogy, because there are brands out there that are very, very strict, very, very narrow in the way they allow the individual franchise owner to run their business. So being a bit of a nonconformist myself, I can respect and appreciate a company that really just lets the franchise owner have some measured freedom within the guardrails there to add their own personality and their own approach to running the business. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little bit here. We're going to have, actually through the course of this interview, we're going to have 2 different conversations about financials. We're going to talk about investment here in a little bit. But right now, I want to talk a little bit about franchisee financial performance. And I want to preface this conversation for our listeners here by explaining some technical language that we're going to talk about here, because a lot of our listeners may have no idea what this franchising world is all about. So if you, a listener, are interested in pursuing a franchise opportunity, one of the parts of your due diligence is going to be to receive what's called a franchise disclosure document. This is a document that is required by the Federal Trade Commission, and every franchise system in the country, whether it's food or home care or whatever it may be, is required to have a franchise disclosure document that is on file with each of the 50 states. Now, there's a portion of the franchise disclosure document that we refer to as an item 19. And franchisors are not required to include an item 19 in their franchise disclosure document, but many of them do. And I personally tend to lean more favorably toward franchise systems that do include the item 19, because it provides just another window into a window of transparency into the performance of the company and the performance of the franchisees. So what an item 19 will tell you is how are franchisees in the system performing at the local level in terms of their financial performance. So that's an introduction. You guys, whoever of you would like to chime in here and share a little bit about your item 19, that would be great.
Dan's going, please, Dan, please,
Yeah,
Dan.
please, Dan, please.
So the way we disclose our item 19, because they do give us flexibility on how we can do it, is we disclose the gross revenue of all franchisees who are in the system and open the prior calendar year that were open the entire 12 months. So anybody that joined mid-year and opened partial year, we didn't include their numbers. They're still listed as franchisees in the document, but their numbers aren't in there. So to keep that apples to apples. And we also include the number of offices they have and the year that they open, so that you can see if there's a correlation between how well they're doing. Our top franchisee doing almost 10 million a year, they're in their 10th year. A franchisee actually in the Michigan market that's been in 2 years and is already doing over 2 million a year. So those numbers are in there at a gross revenue disclosure. The franchisees will have the opportunity, not to jump ahead, but to validate with franchisees in the system to learn about more detailed financials like margins and things like that. But that's how we disclose our item 19.
Yeah, that's great. So, and again, speaking to our listeners here, when Dan speaks of validating, this is a process that you're going to go through as part of your due diligence, where when you receive your franchise disclosure document, you're going to find in that document a list of current franchise owners in the system and with their contact information. And you're encouraged to reach out to those franchise owners, discuss, ask them questions like, what's your experience been like with this brand? Has it been a great experience? Do you enjoy being a part of this network? And some of those franchise owners will be willing to talk about their financial performance. Some of them may keep it a little close to their in their pocket because it is their private financial business, but you will find some who are willing to share those numbers with you. And I think it's another thing that I like to make sure that I talk about on every episode of this podcast when we get to this portion of the interview is that franchisors and franchise brokers and consultants like myself, we're prohibited from making any kind of projections, promises, guarantees of what your financial picture is going to look like. And the main reason for that is because so much of your business falls on you. It depends upon you. Dan and Deanna and myself, we don't know what kind of energy and focus you're going to bring to your local franchise. We don't know what kind of business acumen that you're going to apply once you're awarded a franchise. We don't know what kind of expense control discipline you're going to exercise. So there is so much that goes into the financial performance of a franchise that depends upon you, which makes it extremely difficult for us to be able to tell you what your profit is going to be, what your profit margins are going to be. So not only are we prohibited from doing so by the Federal Trade Commission, it would just really be impossible for us to do that anyway. So I appreciate you sharing those numbers. Those are really good numbers for your system.
That was really well explained. I like that. I'm taking
you.
some of that. That was good.
Yeah, thank you. I explain it like every day, multiple times a day. So I'm very well rehearsed.
Well, I like the part where we have no idea what kind of energy you're going to bring to the franchise. That's the one I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So let's shift gears a little bit here again. One of the questions that I get asked by a lot of my clients is what kind of ownership model can I follow as a franchisee with your system? Do I have to be an owner operator, hands-on day to day, or can I be a semi-passive franchise owner and hire a manager to run the operation? If I can be semi-passive, can I be semi-passive at onset, or can I be semi-passive after a year? Talk a little bit about what that looks like with your brand.
Deanna, you want to cover that?
Sure. So we do require owner operated franchises so that the owner is full-time and involved within the business. And it kind of goes back to what Dan had said at the beginning. One of the reasons that we have seen some of our franchisees not as successful is that the owner is not in it full-time. We're a very compassionate, hands-on business and industry. So for the owner to really exude that's what we're looking for, is somebody who wants to be out there building relationships within the community, going out and servicing and meeting the clients. It shows in the success of their business.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So along that same vein, talk with us a little bit about a day in the life of a franchise owner. What does that look like?
Yeah.
This is definitely a Deanna question.
So there are how I classify as three real roles, main roles within the business. One is recruitment and scheduling and working with caregivers. The other is kind of your admin, back end of payroll, financials, that type of thing. And then the third big piece of the puzzle is out there marketing and building relationships with those in the community. So there is a lot of flexibility of what the owner's strengths are and what they want to do in their day-to-day. So yes, they're trained on how do I recruit, how do I schedule, how do I use this software to make sure that the clients are being taken care of and I'm in compliance. But there's also I love to go out and talk with community members and really make a difference. And that's where I'm going to focus my, time and dedication on. And then there is the back end, finances and operations. So owners have a hand in all of those, but they have the ability to pick which one caters better to their strengths.
Yeah. All right, Dan, is there anything that you would add to that? Or
I was just going to add my little phrase for that is do what you do best and hire the rest.
Yep.
Love it. Love it. Which really is a great segue into the next thing that I want to talk about here. And that is the ideal candidate for a franchise location in your network. But before we jump into that, this is again where I want to speak to the audience here and address something that is another misconception that I come across a lot. As a franchise broker, I meet with clients on an almost daily basis, and I present to them a list of brands to consider. And a lot of folks are considering different industries and they're looking at different brands. And I'll just use an example, a home inspection company, for instance. I may present a home inspection concept to a client, and one of the things the client may say to me is, I don't want to be crawling under crawl spaces and fighting spiders, and I don't know how to determine if plumbing is done well or if the plumbing needs to be replaced. And that's where I stop them and I say, you know what, take a breath, relax. These franchisors are not looking for someone to sign the franchise agreement and start crawling under houses and inspecting plumbing. What the franchisor is looking for is a business owner, someone who knows how to run the business, how to market the business, how to manage financials, how to have an outstanding P&L every month, how to hire the best employees and deliver the most incredible experience to their customers and clients. So, we're not looking for, and I assume this is true in your brand as well, we're not looking for you as the franchise owner to be the one sitting in the recliner next to Uncle Harold, making sure that he's doing okay. We're looking for people who are going to run this business and hire the right people to do that job. So speak to that a little bit from your perspective.
Well, first off, right out of the gate, it does happen that the owner does go sit with Uncle Harold
Okay.
when a caregiver calls out. That does happen.
Good point. Yeah.
But in fact, one of our franchisees, the very first client that he had was a hoarder, and he went to the lady and he said, "We would love to provide service for you, but I can't, in good conscience, bring a caregiver into this, but we're willing to help you." And they hired a company, and he spent like 15 hours just trying to work with that company to get the things cleaned up, and then they were able to start providing care. So it's definitely a roll up the sleeves kind of thing. But exactly what you said is we're looking for building people that are team builders that will build the agency, promote the brand, and create that same family culture within their agency amongst caregivers who I refer to it as they're serving in silos. A caregiver is at Mrs. Johnson's house, another one's at Mr. Jones's house. Unlike a restaurant where they work shoulder to shoulder and the camaraderie built in. So it's a real skill set to be able to help build a family community with people that are working separate silos, in the same way that the franchisor, Assisting Hands, has built that family community with franchisees that are scattered throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we look for people not only have a heart for the business, as I like to say, with all due respect to Cold Stone Creamery, this ain't chopping ice cream. It's just taking care of mom and dad. But they've got a heart for the business, they've got some people management skills, and they've got some basic business acumen. They can understand how to run a business, and the rest of the support we've got in spades. They don't need to have industry experience at all.
Yeah, that's great. Deanna, is there anything you would add to that?
No, I think what you said is perfect. And we are looking for people who want to work on the business, not in the business. So,
Right.
And the ability to understand the difference between those two things is a good quality to have.
Yeah, great. So let's talk a little bit about training. Once a franchisee goes through the process with you and you love them and they love you and they sign the franchise agreement and we get them ready to open up their business, very first thing they're going to do is they're going to go through a training program. So tell us a little bit about the Assisting Hands training program.
So I'll just do a high level of how we approach it and then have Deanna get into. So basically, the new franchisee will be assigned someone from the national support team, which Deanna is on that team, and depending on where they are in the country. And then if there's an area rep in the market, that person will work with the area rep as well to start taking them through something called a BYOC, a before you open checklist. And this is basically designed to help a franchisee go through there's a checklist of items, getting their application applied, submitted to the state if there's licensure requirements, getting a business license, finding real estate, which by the way, we have a vendor that helps the franchisees do that. So there's a whole checklist of items, and then they go to training in Miami for a week, about 30 days before they open. And then when they come back, they have vendor training and with the software, and then a whole marketing thing we haven't even talked about, the pre-opening launch that they do. But that's where Deanna's group gets involved. So maybe you can shed some definitely shed some additional light on some of that, because that was just a high level.
Yeah. Before or as we start to go through the before you open checklist, that new franchisee is on a weekly phone call with the national support member as well as their area representative if they're involved. And weekly, we are going through, what does licensure mean? How do we apply for the application? What are the policies and procedures specific outside of Assisting Hands that you need to follow, let's say in Illinois, to be compliant with their regulations? We have a business plan and a marketing plan that is geared towards our industry that we go through with them to make sure that they're aware of what the business is like, how to market it. We have a pro forma that will help them project out some financials once they are a franchisee. So we take a look at all of that, what their market costs are. Then they do go to training, they come back, and then we'll continue to work with them. If they're in an area representative, they'll go and shadow a live office. The area rep will come to their office and make sure that they're all set up and ready to open their doors. And then that support lasts for the lifetime of their franchise. So National will come out and do on-site visits with them, focus on any areas that they want a little bit of improvement, or they just want to learn more, and then their area rep is there as well on the local level for any day-to-day thing that they might need.
Okay, great. Sometimes I have potential franchisees ask me the question, William, why go with a franchise, or why can't I just open my own assisted or home-based care business? And this is where I go into the business in the box analogy with them. I tell them that, when you're joining a franchise network, you're basically being handed a business in a box. And the box has a brand name on it that is an established brand name with a lot of history behind it, a solid, proven track record. And there's all kinds of goodies in that box that if you are going to just independently open your own home care business or your own home inspection business or detailing, but whatever it may be, there are all these systems and tools and things that you're going to have to individually source and piece together to make your business operate well. And in the long run, you're going to invest more money and you're going to invest more time piecing together a business on your own than if you just join with a franchise system and be handed the business in the box. So let's talk about the Assisting Hands box. What all is in that box?
Deanna, take that away.
Yeah, well, I think one thing right off the bat that really stands out is we help with the policies and procedures for the regulation. So if you have somebody who's in a regulated state, going through the administrative law and the administrative code of what needs to be followed, we provide those policies and procedures. So somebody coming in without without that toolkit without that tool in their box, they've got to come up with those themselves. And that can take months to sort through that language and put the policies and procedures together. Whereas they're ready to submit their application upon weeks, even 1 or 2 weeks. Upon signing. So they're getting their business started much faster.
Yeah.
The other thing I would add is I often say the franchise fee is good for 2 things: mistake avoidance.
Perfect. I like that.
Yeah.
That's
And
good.
then the support and the FOFO. I mean, you do have 85 to 90 other owners who have been in the situation you have been in. And the ability to reach out and ask questions, and we bring people together on various phone calls of support and educational information that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, we're going to kind of bring this thing home now, and we're going to wrap up the conversation with another discussion of financials. And now we're going to be talking about the investment. And again, for our listeners, I want to explain to you the components that go into a franchise investment. So it's typically three things that you're looking at. If you're doing some due diligence with a franchise concept, you're typically going to at some point come across a investment range, and it's going to be a low number, a high number, and anywhere in between. So what all is included in that investment range, that average investment range? Well, the first thing is the franchise fee. Every franchise system that I know of has an initial franchise fee, which basically buys you the box, or as Dan said, mistake avoidance. That franchise fee gets you the brand name, the systems that are all proven and tested, the training, everything that you need to open your business, it comes in that box, and that is what your franchise fee pays for. The second component is hard assets, supplies, equipment. If you're doing a brick and mortar, your real estate, your lease, your build out, your furnishings, all of those things are included in there as well. And when you're looking at a brick and mortar concept, that range tends to be much, much, much broader because of things like varying real estate prices from one city to the next. You know, a brick and mortar in downtown Manhattan is going to be a heck of a lot more than a brick and mortar in Coleman, Alabama. So you've got your hard assets. And then the third component of a franchise investment is operating capital. Our franchisors like for you to have operating capital 3 to 6 months, maybe more, to make sure that you've got money in your pockets as you're scaling up your business, but also to make sure that you have money to invest into marketing and, getting that ramp up going as quickly as you can. So those are the three primary components of an investment up front. There is a fourth component that comes later after you've opened, and that's the royalty. Most franchise systems do have a royalty, but that's a little bit further down the road. So let's talk about the initial investment for your brand.
So the franchise fee is $55,000, and that is included in the investment range from 88 to 160. Sorry about that. So about 88 to 160,000. We feel comfortable if someone has access to $100,000 liquid capital and a minimum net worth of $300K. And because we're very conservative, we'd also like them to have cover their personal expenses for 12 months while they're ramping up the business. Doesn't mean that you can't pull money out of the business first 12 months. We just don't want anybody to have to. Again, very conservative, don't want to put anybody in a financial bind when they're getting into the business. And as you mentioned, you see quite a range of investment on different line items, everything from real estate. In ours, licensure is a big range, as high as $15,000 in some states to register or to get licensed and credentialed, and as little as like $800, I think, in some states where that doesn't exist. So being armed with that information helps you get a feel for where you're going to be spending your initial money. And then I'm also very conservative. I like to have people have, we disclose 3 months of operating capital, and I like to tell people you should quadruple that. So if you've got money left over, great. We just don't want to have to decide whether I'm going to buy groceries or run an ad.
Exactly.
Oh, and finally, the royalty. Our royalty is only 5%, which is on the lower end in franchising. And we have a very unique step down to as low as 4%. So as revenue goes up, there's a couple of breakpoints you hit, and it drops the royalty percentage down.
That's great.
And so that's, and one last thing is the other number everybody asks is the National Ad Fund. Ours is only 1/2 of 1%. Okay. Most companies are 2 or 3%. So we really focus on having low fees, low investment, low operating capital to help maximize profitability for franchisees.
And the ad fund that you're talking about, that is the minimum amount that you require for a franchisee to spend on marketing and advertising in their territory. Is that correct?
No, that's two different things. The national ad fund is what everybody pays in along with the royalty toward, and that goes for all the content creation, because we create all the content. If a franchisee wants to do a flyer on how to care for loved ones with handicaps, if that wasn't already done, which I already know it is, but wasn't done, we would create all of that for it. That's all included in that. There is also a local marketing spend of $750 a month, which in my personal opinion, if you're not spending twice that when you're launching your business, you're not serious about it. But not having to spend more on the national ad fund allows you to spend money where it's better spent in the local market. And Deanna knows things like taking doctor's offices to lunch and wrapping a car, and pretty much everything counts toward that. What are some other local marketing things you've seen, Deanna, that the franchisees do?
Yeah, a lot of community events.
Oh yeah.
That's one of them. Another is sometimes SEO, so digital marketing.
Oh yeah.
They like to spend their digital marketing dollars in their local market and how they want it divided up. So that's something a lot of our franchisees utilize.
Yeah.
And by the way, we do the website for the franchisee and the social media. As well as our marketing director also works one-on-one with the franchisees to put together their marketing plans and events like Deanna talked about, community events, health fairs, participating with like ALS and Alzheimer's associations, et cetera, just getting into the community, really digging into the community.
Yeah, those are some more really key components that are inside that box, the website and the marketing assets and things like that an independent business person is going to have to source themselves. So very good. So I have had in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've had the opportunity to present your brand to a couple of my clients, and I did a little bit of research, in my preparation for presenting your brand. But I feel like I've learned a whole heck of a lot on this interview. So thank you both very, very much for everything that you've shared with our audience today. And as we wrap up, I just want to hand the mic to you freeform here, do some freestyling. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to make sure that potential franchisees know?
Deanna, go for it.
I think my highlights are the support that's provided in the FOFO. I think they truly speak for themselves. So there's a lot of support and resources that you can't even begin to scratch the surface on in a few minutes. So the support, resources, and the FOFO.
And the last thing I would add is our emphasis on taking care of, if you take great care of the caregivers take great care of the clients. And the impact that a caregiver has, not just on the client that they're helping, but on the entire family, just can't be underestimated. And just seeing that impact is just amazing. It really responds to a lot of people's why, if they really want to do this business from a heart standpoint, because they have compassion for seniors and they want to help seniors, again, stay in their home as long as possible, or just help. A lot of it's just fall prevention, which is the number one, if I'm not mistaken, the number one precipitator to declination in health is falls. So, but one thing I would be remiss if I did not add is we have a very unique Discovery Day, which didn't get mentioned as part of the process. But our last step is our Discovery Day, and it's in person, it's in Idaho, and it may involve riding a horse.
Ooh, nice. And
I was just going to say, our CEO and his family live on a working ranch, and they've got 6 kids, couple married, couple in college, but they have a 6'2", 17-year-old son who's a nationally ranked roper in the state of Idaho. And he just won the state championship for like steer wrestling and roping, and he's going to the finals this month. But they have a full roping arena with cattle and horses and an alpaca named Napoleon that thinks he's a horse, and goats and chickens the whole night. And so we go in the day before Discovery Day, and we have dinner with our CEO's family, just dinner with the family. It's just get to know each other on a very personal level. Don't even talk about the business, just vacations and grandkids and parents and whatnot, and just get to know each other. And then the next day is a regular Discovery Day at our office, where you meet the rest of the management team, et cetera. But we have a very unique Discovery Day in the franchise industry as a whole.
I love that. And here's a fun fact. I have lived all over the United States throughout my career. I think I counted my moves. I've moved like 14 times in 30 years or something like that. And the most beautiful, and I know this is not where you are, but the most beautiful place that I have ever lived in my entire life is Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Absolutely love Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And when I tell people, hey, I used to live in Idaho and it was the most amazing place that I've ever lived, I always get the look, potatoes. There's so much more than potatoes in Idaho. It's an amazing, amazing state. So you've got to go to Coeur d'Alene and stay at the Coeur d'Alene Resort, do all kinds of water sports and skiing, whatever it is you want to do. And then you need to be sure that you are a potential franchisee who goes to the Discovery Day in what city in Idaho?
Nampa.
Nampa. Okay.
Near Boise.
Yeah.
So just on that note about potatoes, if the people come out from the East Coast, anything east of Texas, they usually stay a second night because we're done about 3:00 on the second day.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no good flights out of Boise, Idaho, heading east that don't get you in like 2 a.m. So to stay a second night, and we'll do something else fun. We've gone to rodeos. We've watched Lane's kids play basketball and soccer. We've gone to musicals up in the mountains, Crouch, Idaho. And sometimes we've even gone to have a baked potato ice cream.
I was just going to mention that to see. I have yet to have any, but
you haven't had that yet? Oh my gosh!
No.
So, you know who Guy Fieri is? Now we're doing a pitch for Guy Fieri and his show. Well, one of the places he visited is called West Side Diner in Boise, and they have a dessert item called a baked potato ice cream. It looks like a baked potato, but it's got like cocoa powder to make the color but it's an ice cream treat. So. Yeah,
I'm glad you explained that because you saved me from my Google appointment later to Google baked potato ice cream because I was having a really hard time wrapping my head around that one. So.
I think you'll still probably end up Googling it.
Yeah, you should
probably
anyway.
So. But
West Side Diner.
Yeah, so no, Idaho, a beautiful state, but also beautiful people. Some of the most friendliest, most warm, welcoming, kind people I've ever experienced in my life. So
yeah.
But guys, thank you so much for being here, talking to our audience today. It's been a real pleasure. I've learned a lot. I know that our audience has learned a lot. And those of you who are listening or watching, I know that some of you are going to want to learn more about this company. And I just want to encourage you to look down in the description of the video if you're watching on YouTube, or the description of the episode if you're listening on our podcast. And I have complete information down there for you where you can know how to reach out to me. So that we can have an initial conversation, and then it'll be a real pleasure for me to be able to introduce you to these folks here at Assisting Hands. So we're going to call it a wrap so I can go Google baked potato ice cream and let you guys get on with your life. But again, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much.
All right, you bet. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Quantum Business Briefs. I want to wrap up just by telling you a little bit about our sponsor, Quantum Franchise Group. We are a full-service franchise brokerage, and much the same way that a real estate brokerage helps an aspiring homeowner to find the perfect home, we help aspiring business owners or even experienced business owners to find the perfect franchise opportunity. We take an integrity-first approach. We are not in the sales business. We are in the relationship business, and we're committed to putting your needs first and helping you find the opportunity that is the absolute best fit for you. So if you'd like to connect, we'd love to work with you. Everything that we do at no cost to you. You can learn more about us at quantumfranchisegroup.com, or you can simply text the word freedom to 815-885-5475, and that'll begin an initial conversation. Thanks again for being here today. I hope you have an amazing today, an amazing tomorrow, and an even better day after that. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Quantum Business Briefs podcast. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, text the word podcast to 815-885-5475. We'll see you next time, but for now, be well, do good, and make it an amazing day. Bye.